Decoloniality to me means the contextualized, continuous, and evolving reaction against the conditions of life that are brought by colonialism and coloniality, which are globalized by slavery, colonialism, and the capitalist approach, which actually defines the relations in the law, the media, socio-economic relations, and above all, epistemic relations. Mine was not an easy journey into decoloniality. It was funny and tragic in a way because I met one of the foremost scholars of decoloniality in Milton Keynes in England while I was doing my PhD at Oxford. So he was grappling with the concept and he was really more of mastering it. I thought, no, this does not make sense to me. This does not speak to me. And this is not science. But towards the end of writing my thesis in 2014, things were not coming together. I was saying a lot, but I was saying nothing because epistemically I was located somewhere. I was, what one can say is thinking from the false. So I was just giving back what I had been taught without any sort of analysis. So I came back to South Africa and sat down and I met Gajeni Ndlovu, and he actually went on with this decoloniality and taught me the concepts. Then it began to make sense. And then when he said that, I just needed one or two sentences that actually opened my entire thesis. I think it was a eureka moment, which actually I found it being repeated at Optentia when I came here and met the capability approach, because with me, social justice has always been in the center of my inquiry. I think first and foremost, what decoloniality does is that it opens avenues for many other traditions or scholarship or peripheralized knowledges to be actually heard and listened to, because it does not say it is the only philosophy, but it says there should be no monologue. There should be a dialogue between traditions. Decoloniality comes from the position that there is only one earth, but multiple worlds, and multiple perspectives in those worlds. Thus, the idea of having many worlds, today we're living in what is called a modern world. In the past, some people were living in the first world, some in the second world, some in the third world, some were living in the medieval world. But what is behind this idea of different worlds, of saying there's one earth, different worlds with multiple perspectives within them? This idea is premised on the idea of pluriversality, which means diverse worlds, diverse opinions, diverse knowledges. And it is against the idea of one world, because the idea of one world speaks also to the idea of modernity imposing itself over other worlds. Like, for instance, one would use an example of a flower in a garden. If one is always watering one flower, cultivating one flower, yes, it is nice, it is a beautiful flower, but it should not be at the expense of other flowers. So with decoloniality, the way it says, let all the other knowledges also be brought to the fore, and that, I think, enriches science because it creates multiple perspectives in the multiple worlds we live in. I think if someone were to speak of a place where decoloniality applies very well, it is in this place, Optentia, because firstly, Optentia seeks the flourishing of individuals, institutions. It looks at people as not a means to an end, but as an end in itself. So With decoloniality, what it seeks is the flourishing of people by dismantling the very structures that create these inequities and inequalities, because most of the time these structures are actually invisible. So when people go out to study, for instance, let's say people go and study maybe malnutrition in Everton, they might study like how do those people eat, what do they eat, how do they access food. But the invisible power structure of why are they in that predicament in the first place will be hidden. And then decoloniality wants to actually unearth and uncircle those power structures, which I find it very fitting in Hortensia, especially in the pursuit of flourishing of individuals, institutions, and the environment. I think the key challenges that decoloniality faces are not different from any other challenges that the academy faces. Like, for instance, research, maybe people pursue tuition and community engagement. Sometimes the administration is not in dialogue with what the academics and researchers on the ground want. Sometimes there are these bottlenecks that actually always pop up, and then they tend to really derail and frustrate efforts. But when it comes particularly to decoloniality, it is that decoloniality is totally anti-establishment. So how do you flourish in such a philosophical foundation where you have to report to the establishment? That kind of creates a garden of walking paths where you don't know what path to follow. But decoloniality in itself, when you look closely, it has become appreciated almost in NGOs, in government, in many institutions. But that is also a problem in itself, because it becomes performative, because it exists in an environment where there are university rankings, where there's third-party funding, and so for you to get that, you cannot be true to your particular epistemology. You need to compromise here and there. So in the end, the very thing that you seek to fight is the very thing that you find yourself doing. I think it's Nietzsche who says if you look at a beast for too long, you end up becoming the beast. So it is another problem that decoloniality is facing, being reduced to nothing but a performative philosophy. First, I take from Kenyan scholar Ngugi wa Thiong'o something that he calls global ethics. By global ethics, he says, in the dialogue or conversation between knowledge, there should be a globe, there should be no center. So knowledge from whichever angle should come in on an equal basis. So that means it talks to maybe it's calling for too much, calling for the turning the university upside down and questioning its role, because one can sense that there is some sort of institutional decay and there's a identity crisis of what a university is. The university faces a lot of problems. And the fact that decoloniality is a combative ontology, it does not mean that it is free from the challenges that the university is facing. If anything, decoloniality faces the same challenges. The challenges of rankings, the challenges of third-party funding, and the question will be, how do you challenge, they say, one who pays the piper plays the tune. So how do you challenge the person that plays the tune? Global ethics will be one, and then adaptability. The university should, because this cannot be done in isolation, it has to be done in tandem. So adaptability, which means the university itself should actually, and also academics, should actually adapt to the environment, and also the changes in knowledge creation, encouraging maybe the move away from messianic approaches where the academic or the researcher goes and think they are serving a people, they are creating a knowledge for a people, but they should create knowledges with the people. And also, universities should speak from the context they are in, and also from the environment they are in, and issues that come, one would call it an organic university. By that, I do not mean we are nativizing the university, but saying from the context that it is in, it can then share with the rest of the globe is the knowledges that it has found. So axiologically, decoloniality says worlds should exist side by side, informing each other. There is no culture that is superior to another.